Let's move on to part two. Part two, we're only going to look at two steps. The first step is empathy, and the second step is request. But I really want to focus on how we make the request. There are so many common mistakes that people make when they learn English, especially when they're learning English from teachers that have never experienced real situations. And this is the challenge we get, isn't it? When we are an English teacher in high school, but we've never worked overseas, how effective can we be at communicating nuance? So in a business situation, we can break requests into sort of three hierarchical stages. So a hierarchy, sort of a power status. Are you in a power position in the relationship? Are you in an equal position in the relationship? Or are you in a weaker position, a weaker position in the relationship? It's not always black and white. It's not always easy to understand. Obviously, if you're the manager, if you're the boss, you're in a power position. But if your request is very big, that changes things. So I often judge kind of on or maybe like um, a matrix of power and size of the request. So even if you're the CEO of a company, if the request is huge, then maybe you're in a weak position. If it's a huge request, maybe you're in a weak position. If you are the CEO of a company and it's a small request, it's an easy request, then you're in a power position. So we need to judge, we need to think about our nuance of request on two dimensions. Our sort of hierarchy, am I the CEO, am I an entry-level staff member, versus the scale of the request. And if it's big power distance and a small request, then it's a power position. If it's a big power distance and it's a big request, maybe it's an equal or weaker position. So we have to be considerate. So two steps, empathy and then request. And we're going to look at three different nuance types. So empathy. The very simple language we use is I know, I understand, I realize. These are the three phrases you need to show that you empathize with the other person's problem. If you're making a request, in most situations, your request is going to cause trouble for the other person. It's going to use their time, for sure. It's going to reduce their resource capability, probably. It's going to create some other effects that maybe you don't know. Yeah, maybe. So we need to try to show that we understand that our request is going to cause inconvenience. So I know this is asking a lot. I understand this is short notice. I realize we're busy at the moment. And you can change these for any kind of empathetic reaction. Yeah, I know we're busy at the moment. I understand that we're busy at the moment. I realize we're busy at the moment. You can use any of these. I realize we have a deadline on Monday. I understand we have a deadline on Monday. I know we have a deadline on Monday. All of these phrases can be used almost interchangeably. There's almost no difference between these ones, but I like to use the word realize to show deep empathy. Realize for me shows the deepest empathy. I understand shows mid-level empathy, and I know shows kind of lighter empathy. But that's not important. All of these phrases are great. Now, the key thing here is how do we make the request? Remember, we talked before about three positions. We talked about a power position, an equal position, and a weaker position. Well, here's the surprise. I'd appreciate it if you could plus a verb. I'd appreciate it if you could open the window. I'd appreciate it if you would open the window. Could or would, don't worry about the difference. Could shows potential, would shows action. But both of these are type 2 if statements. They're kind of imaginary scenarios. But in this case, when we say I'd appreciate it or I'd be grateful, another phrase is I'd be grateful if you could, I'd be grateful if you would. These are not polite. No, let me rephrase that. These are not weak requests. These are very powerful requests. Only people with a powerful position can use these phrases because it means I think you will say yes. I think I'm confident that you will agree to this. I cannot do this to my boss. I can never say to my boss, yeah, I'd appreciate it if you would give me a day off tomorrow. That's a quick path to getting in trouble in your company. So you can only use this if you're in a power position. I'd appreciate it if you could, if you would. And here's the problem. A lot of Eikaiwa textbooks, a lot of language textbooks teach this phrase as a polite phrase. It is polite, but it's only polite when you have a power position. So I use this phrase when I'm giving an order. This is my language to my staff when I'm giving an order. I don't want a debate. I don't want a discussion. Yeah, I'd appreciate it if you could do it by 5 p.m. today. I'd appreciate it if you would finish by lunchtime tomorrow. It's not a debate. It's an order, but it's a polite order. It's a nice order. It's not a question. There's no question mark. This is a power position phrase. What about like an equal position? And again, remember, equal position depends on your status and the size of the request. So an equal position, we might say, could you? Easy. Could you plus a verb, or could you possibly plus a verb? Yeah, could you open the window? Could you possibly open the window? Possibly makes it a little bit softer, but not a big difference. So we're in an equal position. What about a weak position? Would you mind? Would you mind needs an ing verb? I'm sorry, but would you mind opening the window? So I use this kind of language when I am a guest at somebody's house, when I am a guest at somebody's office, when I am a junior staff member and I'm making a request of somebody senior. I use this kind of language. Would you mind? Plus an ing verb. So be very careful here. We often learn in language textbooks that I'd appreciate it if you could, or I'd be grateful if you could or would. It's polite. It's not. It's a power position. Never use the phrase please. Please plus a verb. Hey, sorry, please open the window. I don't know why people learn this phrase. Please plus a verb is an extremely powerful position, and it should only be used if you are in a very high power position compared to the listener. It's an order. It's a direct order. So be very careful with that. So I'd appreciate it if you would or could. Power position. Equal position. Could you possibly? Equal position. Weaker position. Yeah, would you mind doing something? So let's take a look at our situation. Again, same situation as before, right? So you got a sudden emergency, you got to visit a sick family member in the hospital tomorrow, you need a day off, time is tough, blah, blah, blah. So what are we going to say? So we can use some of these generic phrases. I know this is asking a lot, or I understand this is short notice. I like this one because it's tomorrow. I realize we're really busy at the moment. That's great as well because it shows empathy for our business situation. Here, I'm in a weak position. So I'm going to use either the middle, equal, or the weak. It depends on my relationship with my boss. Do I have a really strong relationship with my boss? If so, maybe middle is good. So could you let me have a day off tomorrow? Could you possibly let me have a day off tomorrow? Or if I have a weak situation, a weak power balance with my boss, I might say, would you mind letting me have a day off tomorrow? Would you mind letting me have a day off tomorrow? So here I'm in a weak position. I'm in a weak power dynamic. Let's have a look at a different situation. Now we are in a power position. So here's the situation. I'm a mid-level manager of a web development company, and I have a team of 10 people, web developers, programmers, things like that. But we're behind schedule. The client is expecting some results on Monday, but we're not going to finish on time. I need my staff to work overtime. So I've got to make a request of my staff. So think about that situation. What's the power dynamic here? Okay, so I'm the boss. This is my staff. So yeah, I'm in a power position, but I'm going to ask them to work overtime at the weekend. Maybe now we're equal. So again, it depends on your personal circumstance. So you need to consider, am I in a power position? And what is the scale of the request? Think about that. So if you are in a power position, I'd say this. I know this is asking a lot, but I'd really appreciate it if you could do an extra shift on Saturday. Or I understand this is short notice, but I'd really appreciate it if you could do an extra shift on Saturday. That's a power phrase. It's a power request. Maybe we're worried. Maybe my developers are quite confident. They're quite strong. Maybe I'm not such a powerful boss. Maybe I want to take a middle position. That's okay. I know this is asking a lot, but could you possibly do an extra shift on Saturday? Or I realize we're busy at the moment, but could you do an extra shift on Saturday? So you've got those three nuance dynamics of power, equal, and a weak position. That should give you a bit of guidance for how to make the request. Remember, the request is stage 4 in that process. Sorry, stage 5 in that process. We had the 3 steps, then the empathy, and then the request. So a good business request is not so quick. It's stage 5.